SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good afternoon and welcome to yet another lecture of this course Philosophy of Architecture. Today is lecture number 19 and the title of today's lecture is Fetishization of Nature and Industrial Rationality. We have been talking about these ideas over last 3-4 lectures and today we will see them in greater detail. Some of the topics that we would cover is emergence of new types of scarcity, nature versus naturalness and induced silence and forgetfulness. If you recollect, in the previous lecture, we have spoken about silence and forgetfulness in the context of streets. Today, we will look at these ideas in the context of industrial rationality and also fetishization of nature. What we see in the screen today, in the slide today right now is the sight of a dining table, where it is quite natural, and when we say natural, it uses wood, it uses jute, it uses natural products. And my question to you is it nature or is it naturalness? Hold this question in your mind as we go towards go through this lecture. So, we are talking of a philosophy of architecture in the context of cities, and another typology of city is what I am trying to offer in this slide. And if you look at two cities, two different types of cities, one more towards agriculture, material, agriculture, mercantile, industrial, and one which is leisure oriented, which is technology oriented and so on. So, if you look at these two types of cities, we can see that broadly these are the aspects that differ in these two cities. So, in the city which is dominated by agricultural output, which is dominated by industrial output, or it is dominated by trade, there you will see it is the material labor which dominates. It is the production that happens in those cities that dominate. It is the agriculture. So, material labor, production and agriculture determine the nature of cities. And if we try and think of some examples, in India, the examples would be, of course, we have discussed the example of Jamshedpur, which is a industrial township, which is manufacturing oriented city or a town. Then you can look at some trading centers across the country, where there is no manufacturing really that happens. It is largely known for trading. It is not even close to any agricultural center. So, such cities will be considered as city where city on the left hand side of this continuum, where more material labor, where production, the small towns in the country can be classified under this category. Towns which are not very close to agriculture activity, but not very far either from the agriculture activity. And when we say near and far, it does not mean geography, it does not mean only physical distance, it also means psychological distance, that people who live in these cities, how closely they associate themselves with agriculture or industrial production. On the other side, we see it is largely intellectual labor that contributes to the growth and development of the city, for the operationalization of the city. So, a city like say Bangalore, which is considered to be a city where IT boom has happened and large number of people are occupied in IT sector or information technology sector. So, that there the labor that is predominantly used is intellectual labor, and so cities like that can be considered as another typology of city where trading also happens, but it happens in the at the level of knowledge, at the level of intellectual rights, at the level of managerial intervention and so on. So, industry in the sense of production and industry in the sense of intellectual effort are two different types of cities, and therefore, they create different kind of structures within the city. So, you will see that initially when the mercantile city developed, they used the agricultural output as goods or commodity for trading. So, initially the relationship was complementary, agriculture was complementing trading or mercantile activity, but gradually it starts becoming contradictory, because then as the trading happens and they realize that trading of simple agricultural commodity is not very profitable. So, what they want is there should be a value addition done to agricultural commodity, and that value addition is often not possible in agriculture centers. So, the goods need to be taken to some other place where value addition is done, and then they brought to trading centers, so that further trading can happen. So, it starts becoming contradictory, and there is resistance from either side. See, farmers and those who are living on the agriculture, they are resistant to the changes that are being demanded by merchants and industries. So, there is a conflict, there is a contradiction that emerges between these three entities that are part of this whole system. So, this movement, which contains contradiction, which contains complementarity and then conflict, all of them happen simultaneously, and in this simultaneity what develops is different forms of cities, and each city is different from one another. So, we must keep in mind this broad ends or broad ends of a continuum, broad dichotomy, that on one side is intellectual labor and on the other side it is material labor, and how they conflict with each other, complement each other, contradict each other, and in this process new forms of urban settlement, urban societies develop, and we can look at them with enjoyment and we can look at them with dismay. So, this is what I wanted to say about the dichotomy between various types of cities rooted or caused by different types of labor that is contributed or that contributes towards making of those cities. Another aspect I wanted to discuss was what is at the root in the formation of these cities in different periods. So, when we look at a city based on agriculture, agricultural city, the fundamental drive that resides in people and in those cities is that of need, the basic need, and the basic need is food, basic need is shelter, basic need is clothing. So, food, clothing and shelter, as we say roti, kapda or makan. So, in agricultural towns and cities, it is the fundamental, the most essential needs that drive the formation of human relationship and the relationship between factors of production and so on. So, this is what happens in agriculture. The root, the fundamental cause is satisfaction of needs, the basic needs, and when this need is satisfied or not satisfied in the way it should, or in a way which is sufficient for the population, then what happens is famines or scarcity, and then new structures of state emerges. So, for example, like we studied Karl Marx when he said that there are two classes in society, haves and have-nots, and it is the haves which prevent have-nots from usurping the source materials of production and factors of production and surplus that is created by the activity. So, what I am trying to say is that when these needs are not satisfied fully, when there is not sufficient production, then what happens is famines, and if not famine, at least there is scarcity, and then the government steps in and police steps in to prevent breaking of law and order, and government steps in to redistribute the smaller amount that is available equally or sparingly among all. So, this famines and scarcity become the characteristic of such cities. Then we go to the new next level or next typology of city, which is industrial city or industrial society. And in an industrial society, what characterizes these formations, urban formations, is work. So, people are generally engaged in doing work, and here we have seen the examples of cities like Jamshedpur, where people engage in work, and even maybe society which are technologically driven. So, say maybe cities like Bangalore or Hyderabad, which are largely professional cities, cities like even Gurgaon, where people are engaged in going to office every day and doing managerial or intellectual labor whole day. And what becomes important in these cities is that of not only work, but productivity. So, how best you can use your time, how best you can use your talents towards the realization of the objective of the organization you are working for. So, it is the productivity. So, in 1 hour or in 1 day, how much can you do? And here here you earn on the basis of the time that you spend at office, the kind of output that you generate through your work and so on. So, what becomes defining feature is productivity. How much can you work and how much output can you generate, and while doing all this, you do not really give a thought to nature. Nature does not really remain important. What is important is your work and your output and how you are able to realize the objectives of the organization. And nature, for all you know, is for all you care, it does not matter, and it can remain as a backdrop, or even if it does not remain, it does not matter. So, that is why we see that in places like Delhi, there is so much of focus on productivity that the nature, the receding of nature is showing itself in pollution and enormous pollution, very high level of pollution, which is preventing even the basic living. People cannot come out of their houses and so on. So, destruction of nature combined with ever increasing levels of productivity. This is the second this is the characteristic of second typology, second type of city, which is an industrial city. And finally, we are looking at urban society, and which is what we have been discussing now for a long time. A society which is urban, which is characterized by as we have seen, a combination of industry, consumerism, technology and so on, and where social relationships are getting changed and transformed. So, this society is perhaps driven by enjoyment and leisure, as we have seen in one of the earlier lectures, that leisure society. So, urban society is also a society perpetually seeking enjoyment and leisure. So, in agrarian period, the primal drive that is at the base of the city formation is need. In the industrial city, it is work, and in an urban society, the primary motive behind people to come together and work and live their life is enjoyment. So, enjoyment of leisure becomes the primary motive, and around that the whole city, the activity of living life is revolving. And here it is still it is early, because urban society is still emerging in today's world. So, it remains to be seen as to what will be the outcome of basing the whole city or basing the whole life on enjoyment, but perhaps we can get some indication, and that indication could be that this enjoyment can come from something like work from home, which means that you do not really have to go to office, you can remain at home and still work. So, that is one aspect that is emerging in this urban society. Second is therefore, the family and the relationship between individuals within the family, social relationship between people who live together. What kind of relationship will emerge? Will it be deepening of the relationship, or will it be relationship becoming more and more superficial? This is something that we have to see how things emerge. The gig culture, which means people will not really be stable in their work at one place. They will work maybe for some time at one place, then another time, some other time, another duration at some other place. They may do 2-3 works simultaneously, which is also called moonlighting. So, what I am trying to say is that all these elements will get transformed, because at the base or the primal motive that drives people will be enjoyment. So, what really will happen in an urban society? This because technology is also playing a very important role, and we have seen when we were discussing the essay question concerning technology, we saw that in technology there is an objectlessness, or there is no objective really. So, where we are going and why we are going, these are not the questions that are addressed by technology. So, will urban society will have a certain objectlessness, which we can see already, but how will it get extended, in what form will it get solidified, and this objectlessness, will it just be ever expanding like universe without really having any purpose or direction? Will it be that, or will it be in some other form which we do not know? So, we will have to wait and see how urban society forms itself in future, but the indications are that it will be through the disintegration of the familial relationships. The work itself will have less sanctity as it used to be during industrial period and agrarian period. So, these are the factors that we must keep in mind when we try to do gazing at the crystal ball and see where this urban society is leading us. So, what we are trying to do is, because we do not know that where it will lead, there is a blind side, and you see in this picture I have tried to make that industrial and urban. So, urban is where we are, and we are moving in further intensification of urban, and industrial is something that we have come away from. So, we have seen the industrial side, industrial cities, and we are moving towards urban, and in this period, in the intergenum, in between, there is something called blind side, something that we are not able to see, and we are not able to see this blind side in both the senses, blinding and blinded. So, it is creating so much of sound and light that it is blinding us. We are not able to see. It is still very exciting. It is still very diverse. It is multifarious. It is a lot of things are happening simultaneously, and they are exciting and different and so on. So, it is dazzling us. It is blinding us, and then we are also blinded. So, blinded means we are not able to see. So, not just by dazzle, but they are so deep and they are so opaque that we are not able to go beyond what is the appearance and see what exactly is inside. So, this blind side, there is also an ideological blind side, ideological vacuum, because it does not stand for anything. There is no content inside this in terms of ideology. So, it is tearing us apart in all directions, and we do not really know where we are going. So, this blind side needs to be understood. this blind side needs to be perhaps theorized, conceptualized, so that it can be analyzed, understood, and then worked upon better. Another problem is that we are looking at this urban with anachronistic tools. When we say anachronistic, because we are used to looking at agriculture, industrial technology, but we are not used to looking at urban. So, we are looking at the urban with our old tools, old eyes of looking at industry, looking at technology, looking at agriculture. We do not have new tools to understand and analyze and project. So, we are analyzing urban with old tools, and therefore, new tools need to be forged, and that is why this blind side needs to be theorized, it needs to be understood, so that and new tools created to understand this urban. So, what I am saying is that the way we are seeing urban is conditioned by our experience of rural and industrial. Our tools that are available to us belong to only rural and industrial. We do not have new tools to understand and apprehend this urban. So, we must think about it as we move forward. Now, another element which is playing a big role in this moving towards urban and urban society, and that which is also blinding us, is simply said, it is nature versus naturalness. So, nature has been destroyed, we do not really give a second thought to nature, and now this environmental concerns and climate change and cities and areas which were earlier cold is no longer so cold, earlier hot, no longer so hot. When it is supposed to rain, it does not rain, when it is supposed to snow, it does not snow, when it is supposed to be hot, it becomes very cold. So, such changes we are seeing in nature, and we do not know what to do with them, and frankly speaking, we are also experiencing a kind of indifference. So, people do not really bother whether it is cold or hot, because if you remember our lecture on intimate spaces, we see that there is no cosmicity to our houses anymore, whether outside it is raining, or it is there is a storm outside, or there is snow, or there is cold, or there is strong wind. We do not care, we do not care because we do not experience. Our houses are inured, it is completely encased in glass, or it is encased in a structure which does not make us feel, make us realize what is going on outside. So, because of that, we feel that we are safe from nature and it does not affect us, and because it does not affect us, so why should we bother about it. So, that is why generally we are seeing that there is an indifference towards the efforts made by governments and people on environmental concerns and climate change and so on and so forth. But here we will also see some other element, which is goods that were once scarce are now abundant. So, at one point of time, think of say 50 years back or 60, 70 years back, it was not very easy to get goods. For example, something like bread, not very easy, there was not abundance. Food in general, I mean, you remember that our Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri exhorted all his countrymen, all of us, that why don't you skip a meal in a day to save grains for the country. So, he used fast as an instrument to ration food, or to ration food grains, so that there is sufficient for everyone. So, there was and this is not very long back, it is just about 50 years back. So, at one point of time, food and food grains and bread, they were not sufficient. Today, these are all abundant. I mean, you do not really have to think that if you go to a shop nearby and the shop will not have food grains, or shop will not have things that you want. So, basic necessities are really taken care of. However, that which was abundant earlier, today has become scarce. So, things like space. So, for example, you see if you wish to buy a house or a house today, you see how expensive it has become. If you want to buy a two-room house which was earlier of some size, has now has gradually shrunk to maybe something as small as 500 square feet, 600 square feet, 700 square feet. You even see 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom flats available in just about 1500, 1600 square feet. So, space has become very scarce, the land has become scarce, land, and that scarcity shows itself in the high prices. So, land has become scarce, and therefore, the space has become scarce. Similarly, time, nobody has time. We have just seen that productivity is of high importance, and if you have to be productive, then you have to use all the time that is at your disposal, and you have to work well, so that that the output that you create is of sufficient quantity. So, time has become scarce, even though we say that we are moving towards enjoyment, a society pegged on enjoyment, a society that values leisure, but where is that leisure? It is, as we have seen in one of the lectures, that these are only myths that have been created, that if you go to a city, you will have more time, your happiness will be, you have more opportunity for happiness, your pleasure will be intense, and so on. But there is no leisure at all, there is no time to do all these activities, because all that we that is expected of us is to work, work and work, so that we are productive and output is of significant quantity and quality. Similarly, desire. The desire itself, earlier we had desire for this and that, we had desire, we had sexual desire, we had a desire to build a house, we had desire to have a good time, we had different types of desire. But today all those desires are losing their intensity, they are losing their bite. The desire has become very mechanical, and it is more for spending the money that you might be having than having the actual desire for consumption, for enjoyment and so on. Something even more basic, something like water, air, we have just discussed about the pollution in Delhi air, and it is becoming so problematic. So, we have also discussed how every city has something like parks and garden to make people, to remind people that there is something in this world called forest, there is something called a lake or a pond that tells us or reminds us that we must not forget, and there is a reminder in our midst, which is something like a park and garden. So, what used to be abundant has become scarce, and what was scarce has now become abundant. So, in this scenario, in this context, what kind of cities will have to be created, where the space, time, so how do we manage these new scarcities, the new structures, whether it is streets, whether these are buildings, public buildings, private buildings, houses, how are they to be designed and created, so that these new forms of scarcity are managed and so on. So, nature is shrinking, we know nature is shrinking, and it is yielding way to built structures, it is yielding way to streets, it is yielding way to townships and so on so forth. And because nature is shrinking, we are guilty, we are sad, we are nostalgic, filled with nostalgia that, oh, nature has gone away from our midst, and we should not allow that to happen. So, what we do is, we are trying to create, instead of nature, naturalness. So, you remember the first slide, where the picture of a dining table, where everything is very natural. So, we are satisfying ourselves with naturalness of objects, which reminds us of nature, and the real nature. In fact, we allow the real nature to die, we allow the real nature to be destroyed, and while all the time remaining happy with mere naturalness. So, what we are doing is that we are multiplying the objects that seem to be natural, but are not nature related or not nature itself. So, if it seems to be natural, it is sufficient, we do not have to worry about real nature. And we are seeing that I mean, if you see, look at this picture, inside a house there is a decorative tree, a plant and so on. So, we are replicating a tree, I mean things like tree, flower, branch, scent, all of them are being replicated in a natural way. So, they are not really nature, they are not taken out of nature, but they are made, they are constructed, they are and they are artificial, they just look like nature. So, this is what is happening amidst us. And in architecture also, I mean there was a time when Frank Lloyd Wright talked about organic architecture, and you will recall that Falling Waters, that is a beautiful building which is situated amidst nature, and waterfall is something that you can experience, you can touch and feel and enjoy. But today what is happening to that organic architecture? I have shown you the building of Mukesh Ambani's house, or that DLF dahlias and camellias, which are, so they are only presenting a picture of nature. It is not really real nature that you experience. So, ideas like organic architecture or biophilic architecture, where the architecture uses forms that remind us of various biological realities. So, it will remind you of the beak of a bird, or it will remind you of the feather of a bird, or a form of say an animal, and so on, or it will remind you of a brook, or of a waterfall, or of a mountain, or of a tree, but it will only remind you, it is not going to take you closer to these natural objects. So, that is what we are seeing, that fetishization of nature is happening at the level of appearances, at the level of naturalness, and not so much at the level of real nature, because real nature is expensive, real nature is not there, it has receded, it has been destroyed. So, here I would also like to remind you about one work, and that is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley is a famous author, novelist. This spelling of Aldous is wrong, it should be Aldous, not Es. So, Aldous Huxley, he wrote this novel Brave New World in 1932, and you can see this picture, in this picture what he says, and this was written when this Ford T model car was becoming very popular, and you had this mass scale production, mass production of cars. So, you remember that statement, and you can have a Ford car in any color as you want, in any color you want, as long as it is black. So, everything was similar to each other, it was mass produced, and in this novel Brave New World, Aldous Huxley says that babies will be mass produced, and they will be mass produced to do a certain work, and he said that in one class, or in one batch, babies will be produced which are alpha type, then beta type, then gamma type. Alpha type will do this work, gamma type will do another work, and so on and so forth. So, this was a picture presented of future by Aldous Huxley in his novel Brave New World. Now, something similar may happen and may not happen through mass production, but it may happen through urban society. Let us take a look. Analytical fragmentation becomes intense. So, we are easily able to see various categories of people, and they are homogenized. So, one category of people are the same within that group. Similarly, so there may be difference between groups, but within the group they will be more or less homogenized, and this is happening because the unity supplied by religion, philosophy and state becomes artificial superimposition. The sanctity of religion is becoming weak. The solemnity with which we used to look at gods it has also gone away. The importance of philosophy, the way it integrates all walks of life, all ways of thinking, also becomes weak. And state, when state is saying something, it becomes artificial. People do not want to obey the state, and all of them becomes imposition or superimposition, and the unity that used to come from these factors are becoming weak. So, we are becoming disparate, we are becoming loose, and upon facts, disciplines and laws. So, all of them are losing their tightness, losing their unity and becoming loose, whether it is discipline, whether it is law, whether it is facts. And the vacuum induced by industrial homogeneity and perpetuated by objectless technology takes its place. So, the unity which came to us from religion, from philosophy, even from leaders who presented themselves as an example, as role model, all of that unity has disappeared or is disappearing, and that vacuum that is created by this disappearance remains a vacuum. There is nothing which is there to take its place, and the homogeneity that was induced by industry and the objectlessness or the directionlessness of technology is also contributing to the fact that the place vacated, the unity removed by religion, philosophy, state, leaders remains a vacuum. It becomes a hollow, it remains a hollow, and the existence becomes hollow. So, these are the direction perhaps that urban society is taking, and the field of architecture, field of urban planning and all other disciplines of life must look at these as indications as to how they have to interpret their own work in the light of these changes. This homogeneous space time. So, homogeneity within people and homogeneous space time. The space time has also become homogeneous. So, you look at the if you go to shops, you see same brands, same products available everywhere, whether you go in New York or you go in Delhi. These are the same, filled with the dust of objects. So, it is only objects, objects and more objects. So, dust of objects, there are so many of them that they have almost become like dust. And then fragmented activities, no matter what we do, they are all very fragmented. There is no integration, of disparate activities which tells us that we are moving in that direction, this is what we have to achieve, why we are doing it, it will lead to fulfillment, joy, enjoyment, pleasure. There is no such thing. Everybody is performing small fragmented activities, and that is it. Situation. So, what such a space time or such a city is creating are just different situations, and these are all fragmented situation, isolated situation, and people are discovered in those situations, or people find themselves in those situations. That is why you see that today, instead of calling relationship, people are calling it situationship. People are found in situations, and because of those situations, people either like them or do not like them. Similarly, appearance of coherence lends to easy systematization. Now, coherence means what? It is a step forward from the idea of homogenization. So, we are become homogeneous, space time is homogeneous, people are also homogeneous, their thoughts and feelings have become similar, and because of all that, it all seems very coherent. It seems very a part of a very large system, everyone is fitting into some part of the system and making the system run. So, this coherence, so when you try to study this coherence, study this society, when you see that this society is homogeneous, this society has a system, it has parts and parts function in this manner. So, when you see all of this and you see it as a coherent whole, then you also see that if you make an intervention here, this will be the result, and if it is coherent and if it is like machine like, then it becomes predictable. So, it becomes easy to work upon it, and by working upon it, we mean that you make a policy change, and by policy change you are able to predict that if I make a change here, it will have its impact in X, will have an impact on Y, and this will be the quantum of impact, and then Y will make an impact on Z, and so on so forth. So, this way it all becomes like a large system, like a machine which can be operated at one place. So, what I am trying to say is that this homogeneity in people and culture and society and homogeneous space time, both of them are combining to create the whole society like a one large gigantic structure, a machine which can be operated by a few from any place anywhere in the world. This is what in the Brave New World Aldous Huxley talked about, and he gave a glimpse of. In fact, he says that the government is monitoring people as to how they are behaving, and when government or state sees that there is one individual who is meeting another individual for more than 3 times, the government gets suspicious, because if you are meeting another person and the same person for more than 3 times, then there is likely that between the two of them emotion of love, emotion of friendship has developed, which is making them cling to each other and turn to each other in times of struggle or distress and so on. So, government and state does not want such fellow feelings, such emotions, such friendships and love to develop, because if that develops, then the authority of the state will get weakened and people will not focus sufficiently on productivity, on output and so on and so forth. So, this is what Brave New World talked about, and in a very beautiful way it gave us an indication as to the shape of things to come, shape of urban society and the likely contours that the new society will have. Let us move forward. So, essentially what are we saying? We are saying that the society is run or will be run on the basis of industrial rationality. It can also be called technological rationality, and that means that the rationality of a machine, rationality of technology. If you are familiar with technology, we say it is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So, what is input, and input will determine the output. So, it will be just like that, garbage in, garbage out, and the way a machine is running, on the same way the whole society, the whole urban society will run like a machine, and it will reject particularity. Reject particularity means nobody will be allowed to be an individual, be unique. Nobody will be allowed to have unique relationship with another unique individual. So, those things will be seen as dangerous and something that must be thwarted or clipped at the bud. Rational finality uses organizational processes and operations. So, if the society is running like a machine, and machine runs on technology, machine runs on logic, and that logic is final if the machine has to run, and that finality, that logic will be applied and will be used in organizational processes and operations. So, how people will talk to each other, how people will interact with each other, how people will interact with masters, or will there be masters, and the person who presses the button, is he the master, or the person who controls the finger which presses the button is the master. How does the operations work around? So, such things will be influenced by this rationality of industry, rationality of machine and rationality of technology. What it will do is, it will assign partial tasks to social auxiliaries, which means that nobody will really know that what is the full picture. Everybody will do partial task, you do a fraction of the whole process, and you find completeness in that partial nature of work or that task. You will never know what is the full picture, you will not even know what is the next step that will be performed on the task that you have completed. So, that also you will not know, and how all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle come together and create a picture, that very few people in society will know. And this will be done not just at individual level, but it will be done at the social level also. So, it is not that only the individuals, only people who are working will be doing partial tasks, they will also be groups which are involved in doing partial tasks. So, even as a group you would not know what is happening. As a group, you will just be part of another large group, and therefore, you will not be able to stand for something which is dear to you, which you believe in deeply and strongly. So this is how industrial rationality or technological rationality will find expression in urban society. Everything becomes calculable, transferable, predictable and quantifiable. So, if you recollect, the nature of technology, the nature of machine is that everything is measured, and if you do not measure, then you do not know what is happening. And in this society, which is controlled by industrial rationality or controlled by technological rationality, unless it is calculable, unless it can be transferred from one place to another, one system to another, you cannot predict. And if you can predict, you can also, and you should also be able to predict the quality and the quantity. So, everything should be expressed in numbers, expressed in quantities, only then it can be managed, it can be manipulated, it can be controlled. So, the idea is that the whole society is manipulable, it is controllable, it is predictable and so on. And here I would take your attention to our discussion on the question concerning technology by Heidegger, where we were discussing that technology is a totality of beings made utterly available and manipulable as standing reserve. So, anything and everything becomes raw material, anything and everything is a standing reserve and a raw material. Now, whether that is a human being, that whether it is human beings creativity, human beings ability to move, the motor skills or ability, everything including material and people or labor, everything that is possible to be converted into some goods and services will become a standing reserve, it will be available to get manipulated, so that some objective can be realized. And he also said that technology does not apparently have any objective, there is an objectivelessness to technology. So, the questions like why are not to be asked, only questions of how will be addressed, and that will be addressed through technology and through this complete quantifiable nature of everything. Everything must be part of an order enhanced by constraints. Now, in industrial rationality, everything is part of an order, and order means you order it in a certain way, whether it is space, whether it is people, whether it is their thoughts, goods, services, no matter what you can think of, streets, buildings, resources, whether it is water or air, whether it is food, no matter what you can think of, everything will be part of an order, and that order could be apparent, you can see that order, or it could even be fictional, that you can't see, maybe you can just talk about it, perhaps it does not exist, but there is an order, and each one of these order will have constraints. So, it is like a mathematical equation, it is like a limiting equation that we encounter in mathematics, that you have an order, you have an equation, you have an equal sign, then you have a constant, and then there are constraints within which you have to operate. So, the whole society is becoming like a mathematical equation. Residual disorder freedom is either hunted down or tolerated. So, there will be some elements in society who are who hanker after freedom, who say I will not adhere to these rules, I will not be disciplined, I will not do what you are saying, and I want freedom, and I like chaos, and I want disorder, and who will argue for these elements in society. But what will happen is, in such a society which is running on industrial rationality, such people will be either hunted down. So, you will see that either they are hunted down in the sense that you will see that when there are autocratic governments, people who dissent or people who say things which are not pleasing to the government, slowly you will see, not immediately, but over a longer period of time, you will see that they have perhaps met with an accident, or they have died, or someone has killed them. So, such things will happen with people who dissent or who remind others that there can be disorder, there can be freedom. And so, they are either hunted down, or perhaps they will just be tolerated and ignored, and nobody will bother about them, and so on. So, such things, such events will take place in the city, in the society, and what will happen is, because everything has become homogeneous, history will accelerate, because nothing significant is happening, no war, no death, or I mean no outside ordinary death, nothing which is of significant scale is happening, and therefore, everything has become dumb, everything is dumbed down, everything is just, it will be like running of a machine, that it keeps running on and on and on without any maintenance required, or without any breakdown, and so on. So, if such a thing happens in society, history will accelerate, and there is nothing really to report by history, and it will a large tracts of time will go when there will be nothing to say, and so on. Any warfare or revolution aborts itself the moment it seems to realize. So, if any such rebellion or revolution or warfare begins to happen, and people come together and they say this is not a happy state of things and we must change it, and things like that, moment it starts happening, the whole system is work in such a way that moment it starts, very soon it will either fail, or it will stop on its own, it will abort itself, and that is how the whole system will be preserved, and nothing will seem to be moving forward. Two quick interventions. I had written this article on the architecture of online classrooms. Now, what happens is, because of technology, now the classrooms have become, so see the idea of industrial rationality, how it is entering the classrooms, and in the classroom what happens is, it emphasizes intangible concepts and symbols, opens up unseen relationship between time, knowledge, culture and society in determining students' identity. So, what it is saying is that when you are in an online classroom, okay, the responsibility becomes comes to you, you are responsible, all right, and you see this simultaneous. So, all of us know that when we are in an online classroom, we are free to switch on the video or keep the video switched off, talk to faculty or do not talk to faculty, because we are at a safe distance, and we do not we know that the teacher cannot do anything, he is not able to see us, he is not able to talk to us. So, we have the freedom and we also have the responsibility of learning, and both of this are simultaneous. This simultaneity of freedom and responsibility in online learning spaces attains intensity and indifference at once. So, if you are sincere, you will feel that you are free and you are responsible for your own learning, and therefore, you will make more effort. But what will also happen is that if you are not driven enough, it will create indifference and learning will suffer. So, this intensity, making this responsibility intense is what technology is able to achieve in an online classroom. So, the architecture of online classroom is, one component is the simultaneity of freedom and responsibility, which intensifies one's learning. Second thing is, space in such an online classroom is facilitated by technology. It provides experience with a new texture. So, in an online technologically facilitated classroom, so here I am giving an example of a classroom which is where how industrial rationality will operate. So, in a classroom, experience gets a new texture, and in it interactions are reduced to sound and light that are mere appearances. So, in an online classroom, our interactions are only sound and light, and they are just appearances. We are talking to image, one image is talking to another image, and it is illusory and it is superficial. So, when two images talk to each other, what is real in it, and is learning that emerges out of that, is it real, is it stable, is it lasting? These are the questions we must ask. So, when we are in an online classroom, what we see, the architecture of it is nothing but technologically facilitated interaction between images. That is the structure of an online classroom, and therefore, what it does is it alters, radically alters the relationship between teacher and the taught. The power that exists between teacher and the taught is removed or is lessened or is weakened, and in that lies an opportunity, and in that also lies a threat that this new industrial rationality or technology driven classroom can discover new potential and new threats for learning and for growth. So, this is what I wanted to cover today. In the final lecture tomorrow, I will do a summary of what we have done so far. I will also do some theorizing of urban society, and I will do that with an example of third space. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the lecture today.